Welcome, everyone. Coaching and Flourish podcast. We have Raj back. She spent the last couple weeks in India workshopping, traveling with her husband, going around, making change all over the world. Raj, welcome back to the Coaching and Flourish podcast.
Thanks, John. It's great to be back.
You got
Exciting.
good food, and their tea is amazing in India.
Oh, so much good food. So much good food. I was so spoiled. And masala chai probably 4 times a
Oh, yeah.
day, and
Oh, yeah.
Indian sweets, and all kinds of things. And clothes shopping. I've got my Indian clothes on today.
There you go. There you go. Here, let me turn this sound thing off. It's hold on, again. It's better.
And you were
That's better.
traveling. You were traveling too, weren't you, John?
I was. We're thinking about maybe the family relocating to London for 6 months. I don't know. We have a 15-year-old and she's into musical theater, and Hood River's lovely. We love it here, but I feel like we're yearning for a little bit of the experience of a city, and we want to do that before she goes off to college. So the timer's ticking, and it's good. It's good stuff.
To
We have
continue
a
like coaching all over the world, John.
the, when I look at the world and the geography of it, and where coaching is, I feel like there's a big opportunity if we were in different time zones to really bring it to different places. And we have a pretty substantial base of people we've trained in the Middle East, in Africa, but not Europe. It's interesting. So anyway, here we are.
Well, that leads me nicely to our first question then, John, since we're talking about kind of global work and working online. The question that we have here is, what are some Zoom etiquette tips coaches should keep in mind?
Yeah, that's like coaching etiquette when they're on a like when you're on a call, like when you're being okay. So let's break it down. When you're on a call, like, and then also when you're on one-on-one with people, or when you're doing an interview and things like that. I think the best thing, what I've seen, are people who have really good sound. I love my sound. You got good sound. I feel like if you have good sound, that goes a really far way to good sound and good lighting, or basics. And then you have just like the usual things, like don't drive, don't have distracting noises or sounds. If a kid comes in the room, it's okay. Like like there's some general that's it. I'll stop there. Yeah, I'll stop there.
I think in the kind of environment and background. I notice, is that a new picture behind you, by the way? It looks lovely with all the purples and blues.
It is. It's one of those ones that you can put an image, so I can change it up when I want to. I know. I know.
That's very cool.
It's
Okay, so John likes to take it to the next level with his sound and his fancy video and nice images.
I've been doing this full time since 2017. So we were zooming before people knew what Zoom was, and the idea. I mean, it's your office, right? And so I think a general guideline is I would approach your Zoom environment with the same level of professionalism as you want people to see you. And uh, it's like when we travel with the family, we go to airports. Like our boys, they're 3 and 6. They wear blazers. Like we call it dress fancy. Like they dress up. They just get treated better when they're dressed up. So it's like that on Zoom. Like there was a period of time when, as an experiment, this is back in 2016, 2015, when I was leading a lot of classes. And for 2 weeks, I decided to do an experiment where I would show up in a t-shirt and lead my classes from a t-shirt, try out like let's call it rugged mountain biker brand. Where it's like, oh, I'll just show up like whatever. If I have mud on my glasses, so be it. Just be like authentic, whatever, that person. And I realized after the 2 weeks, I was so exhausted. I was so much more tired than I usually was because I had to put in so much more energy to get the, I don't know, maintain energetic control of the training. Then I switched the next 2 weeks to wearing, a white starch shirt with a blazer, and it was a complete opposite. It was like you have instant, you have instant respect, instant credibility when you dress like that. But then I think you also, it might take away a little bit of the friendliness aspect of it, or, it might be a little too much in different times. Or I would get on calls and people go, oh, like I didn't realize there was like, they have a comment about them, they go self-conscious about themselves. And so this is where I've settled on like a middle ground of like, charcoal button-up shirt. But I think I think fashion matters on these calls. Like you want to dress like the same way you would if you were going to an office meeting. I mean, essentially from the waist up. I mean, you don't have to wear, I'm wearing slippers, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know sometimes I've worn pajama bottoms, but you can't see them. I'm Mickey Mouse pajama bottoms. But joking aside, I know that I feel better when I do kind of do my hair or dress up a little bit, because it's part of your brand as well, isn't it? What you're bringing to the table.
Right. And let's say there is a big meeting or something or a lot of training. Like I will wear still like a complete professional clothing. I mean, I won't put on super fancy shoes, but I'll dress in a way that if I do have to get up and do something, it's not like, oh my goodness, he's wearing polka dots. Like, like you don't want to go that far, but it does matter. You feel better. You just simply feel better when you're on. And I don't like the virtual backgrounds. Like I don't like fake backgrounds. That's my preference. Some people do it and I'm like, okay, fine. Or like the super blurry ones where you don't, or the ones that are just like, your head disappears a little bit. Yeah, I'm not a fan of those. But I know some people use them. Yeah, I think that gets more in my personal preference.
And then I think some other things to just think about, isn't it, is your own body language. And if you're a coach and you like to make lots of notes, it's going to be pretty obvious if you're in a one-on-one session, and what might you want to discuss in the Design the Alliance in terms of what a session's going to look like. And I know for me, I've learned body language is really important because I do a lot of group sessions. And when I'm listening, I look really intense. And I remember somebody sending me a message. One of the mentors sent me a message once saying, are you okay? And I realized how serious and intense my face was. So I have to catch myself and smile, because I can look really serious when I'm listening. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's the term I heard that called is default face. Like we each have a default face when we're listening or like an audience. And I mean, anyone who does a lot of teaching or is in front of a lot of groups, you get really used to knowing everyone. You get used to looking at default faces, which is essentially the face that you have when you don't think anyone is really looking at you, but someone is looking at you. Everyone else is looking at you, like this kind of thing. It's helpful to know what your default face is. My default face too is intense. Almost everyone's default face is intense. Looks serious and unimpressed.
Yes.
Kind of mean. I don't know. It's very rare that like Amois has a very lovely default face, but it's very rare. I feel like people who have naturally, amazing default faces. It's something to work on. It really is. It's something to work on. Think about it. I think a lot of it's like, relaxing the space between your eyebrows. That's my key. If I try to relax that space, then I feel like the rest of my face follows. But you find your key. And what's nice about Zoom, though, is you can also see yourself, too. So you can see the face you're making when you're listening to other people. So it's kind of like looking in the mirror, which, having done it for a long period of time, you actually see yourself start aging. It's a really fun thing when you think about it. Because like if you do, so that's in a couple of years now, everyone on Zoom is going to be, hey, I've been doing this for 3 years. And then maybe I should change up my profile, like my default profile picture. Or maybe not. Maybe I just let it go for 5-10 years, and that's okay. So there's a lot of stuff like that. You'll get into it. I mean, I've been doing Zoom now. It's at least, or before that was Google. We use a couple of the video things, but I think they're all useful to see yourself. I really do, because you get to see how you show up. It's also really useful if you record Zoom sessions and watch it. That's even better, because you're seeing it not in real time. You can stop, you can pause. I don't like thinking about, other than like the eyebrow thing and the default face. I get the question a lot when coaches are asking, do you need to have what do you do about body language when you're listening as a coach? I don't. I think if as long as you when you're coaching, when you are actively listening and being actively empathetic, like whatever you need to do to be actively empathetic, do that and trust that your face will follow. Your client will know that you're listening to them. I don't have like a specific other than the eyebrow thing.
And I think the only other thing I would add to that is not to assume that everybody wants Zoom coaching, even if you're working with people globally, because I think I've said this before and you and I have discussed it, that actually 90% of my coaching I do on the phone.
Yeah, me too. I like to be coached over the phone. I don't like Zoom. I don't like being coached on Zoom.
Yeah, I don't either, actually. And I've had clients say that to me. I remember I was working with a client for over a year and she said, oh, everyone's trying Zoom. I'd never seen her. I'd never even seen her. Everyone's trying Zoom. She tried it once and said, let's go back to the phone, because she enjoyed lying down when she was being coached. She wanted to relax and not stare at herself.
Yeah. I like walking around. I like walking around when I coach. I like walking around when I'm being coached. I like having my coach's voice in my head with no visual. I really like that. I have a couple of specific coaching spots where I go to. It's fun.
Yeah, I have my coaching sofa.
Yeah, I usually sit out there and I'll grab some outside and grab some shade.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I'll pace. I'm a walker too, and I'm a walker and coacher.
Move around a bit. Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
So there are different options for people to think about. Okay, I'm going to then jump over to the next question, which is directly opposite of this. I only want to do in-person coaching. Mm-hmm. How can I best grow my coaching business locally?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's reasonable, and I think there is a pretty significant, I mean, depending on where you're at, population that you can tap into if you want to coach locally. Usually, if you want to coach locally, your target audience is going to be broader, so it's harder to specialize in that. But you can specialize in people who want in-person coaching in your area, and then I would try to specialize even within that, and pick an emotion that you can specialize on, like people who want more motivation, people who want more structure, clarity, people who want to work on goals or goal setting or learning styles or whatever it is. I would pick something that isn't necessarily describing the characteristics of your target audience as much as describing characteristics of people, any person, what the challenge that they're wrestling with or what they want help with. That's what I would do, like for step one in terms of specialization. And then two, local stuff. And I mean, when I was building my practice, I worked with students in Portland. I did not have a lot of students outside of Portland. So I just worked whatever networks I had locally. And I did about half of my coaching in person, half over the phone.
And where did you meet? When you were doing the coaching, where would you coach?
I had a couple coffee shops I really liked. I would have different days where I was at different sides of the city so that people could come to me a lot easier, because it doesn't make sense, especially after school with traffic hour and things like that. I could get there, I would go before traffic kicked up. Sometimes I'd ride my bike, and then I'd get there around maybe let's say 2, and then I'd work with students from back to back from maybe 3 to 7, sometimes 8, and then I'd hop on my bike and get back. Hop in the car if it's on the other side of the city. But yeah, I had a couple of my favorite spots I go to.
So I was thinking about this, and you name it, I've tried it at some point. And I worked with some coaches who wanted to do some of that work locally. And I was thinking about, as you said, the different kinds of niches or areas that you're working in. So for example, wellness coaching, I know coaches who have partnered with a local gym or a yoga center. I have a spiritual coach that I go to, and there is a few different things that are there. There's acupuncture and chiropractor, and there's different kinds of coaching, and they've partnered with each other and promote each other's services. So I think that's quite a good thing, isn't it? Is to find where your people are, partner with them. Maybe you can share office space as well. Um,
Yeah,
what do
it's
you think?
helpful. I think a helpful thing, I think a lot of coaches are afraid to be themselves. And they really want to be someone who they think is going to be attractive and get clients when they're out doing professional networking and things like this, which I get. I mean, I was there too. I was in a spot where I had to get clients in order to keep it going, you know. And a helpful shift in my mindset was thinking, I can really only coach maybe 40 people at any one time. So you're really only after 40 people. That that's not that many if you think about the whole population of where you're living, the whole population even just around you. So really your biggest competitor is a lack of awareness around what coaching is. That's your biggest competitor. The fundamentals of the field work. Your biggest competitor is not other coaches. They're actually doing you a favor because they're helping increase awareness of the field. So when you start looking at it like that and you think, okay, so how can I reach? So if I need 40 people to say yes, I need to reach at least, let's say 200 people. How do I reach 200 people? And now that to me, that's the proper, that's a more useful question than how can I get 40 clients? It's how can I reach 20 people? And then when you're looking at, okay, so how can I reach 200 people? So if you're looking at how can I reach 200 people? Okay, so who do I need to reach out to in order to reach those 200 people? Now you're talking. Now you have something that you can tangibly look at and start to map out. And exactly what you're talking about is let's go meet the owner of this wellness center. Let's go talk to, let's say that let's go talk to haircutters, stylists. Right? Give every stylist in your whatever radius, offer every single hair stylist free coaching sessions, and or you do some workshops or whatever. Give them here are 5 powerful questions that you can ask your people. Whatever it is, reach people. If you reach people, you will get clients.
You've got to be courageous, haven't you? And you've got to speak to people and knock on doors, as you say. Speak to your own stylist. I've done that too.
It's not. I mean, if it were easy, everyone would be an entrepreneur. It's not easy. It's not easy. But a lot of it is your own internal work, and if you view it as a way of growing yourself, and you have a larger mission and vision in mind of what you want to do that's larger than yourself, then it helps. I mean, all the tools that we talk about in the program are really, really useful. Yeah, sometimes I feel like I have post-traumatic entrepreneurship feelings. It's hard. It's hard.
It is. It is.
Super hard.
And sometimes you got to knock on way more doors than you thought, and then a breakthrough happens. Yeah, you've got to be resilient and relentless, don't you?
Yeah, there's an element of you just got to keep going no matter what, and expect rejection and be okay with it. Yeah, there's a TED talk I saw, like a TEDx talk. We talked about doing it was 100 days of rejection. And I was looking at, I listened to his, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, that's exactly it. But that's so depressing too at the same time. Really have to be declined that often. But you just got to trust the numbers and put yourself out there and trust that if you do this kind of work, angels will show up. And that's what you're really looking for. You're looking for 1 or 2 angels. And these are people who will refer 10 people to you. People who you connect with and think, yeah, I'm on the right track. And when you start finding your angels, and you nurture them and you have the eyes to see it and realize what's happening in real time, there becomes a sense of gratitude and purpose that you realize, yes, I was born to do this work. Like, this is exactly what I was born to do. And then the work becomes even more important than the money. Like, you get to a point where you're thinking, yeah, I would do this just because humanity needs this work to happen. That's when you know you're really on your game. But to get there, for me, I mean, you got the forest can be deep and dark.
It can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yet the success is so much sweeter than, for me, it feels, doesn't it? When you know that you've been on that journey.
I feel almost nostalgic for that period of time, even though I also remember, yeah, it was stressful, like the most stressful thing I've ever had to go through and do. But there's a part of me that's nostalgic for it. It's messed up.
It is.
It's so hard.
So many stories, but I know we don't have that much time, so I'm going to move on to the next question. Similar yet a bit different. So what are some tips for finding your first executive coaching client? And it says executive coaching specifically.
Raj, go for it. I feel like this is you 100%. I have ideas, work, but I mean, this is your specialty.
Well, okay. So I have a few things I'm going to share. I mean, I don't want to make the assumption, but I am making the assumption that if you have gone into executive coaching, then perhaps you have some kind of connection or interest or even a background in leadership or the corporate world or business. Or I know I've worked with realtors, for example, who want to do executive coaching, or business schools, that kind of thing. So I've said this many, many times before, even as you are getting prepared to transition, make sure that you are starting to have those conversations. Make sure that you are leveraging those connections and you are connecting with people that you could pick up the phone to. And those people are HR leads, organizational development leads, employee resource groups, diversity and inclusion leads. I mean, it's all kinds of businesses out there. You know, you could work in education field, you could contact business schools. Business schools have lots of coaching departments and looking for coaching all the time. The other thing is, we hear a lot about social media, and I've shared that I came off social media a few years back. Yeah, I am on LinkedIn. And if you are specifically focused on executive coaching, you've got to go where your people are at, haven't you? And that's where they're at. They are on LinkedIn. So where are the leaders at? What groups might you want to join or be in? And if you're looking for your first executive coaching client, it might be being brave and putting a post on there on LinkedIn and saying, hey, I've just come out of this course, or I've just come out of this program. It might be that you do it complimentary to start off with. It might be that you do it at a discounted rate, but that's where your people are at, and putting it out there on LinkedIn, I would say, is a good place. Also tell your connections. So you're bound to have some friends that are going to be in the business world, aren't you? You're bound to have friends or a spouse or somebody who is in some kind of manager role, leader role, corporate role, business space. So you've got to be courageous and say, I am an executive coach. I'm doing this executive coaching. So you've got to put that word out. Another thing I would say, attend leadership events, because that's where your people are. So what conferences are happening, what leadership events are happening, and whether it's, I mean, in person, even better, because that's where I started going to things in person and collecting cards and collecting connections. And I just came back from India, and I connected with the hotel that I stayed at, and I connected with the woman leader that was there, and what leadership work is happening. And we just happened to get into a conversation. And we flew on an airline called Indigo, and all the women wore badges that said girl power. So I made it my business to connect with key people of that business as soon as didn't even wait till I got back, actually. What are your thoughts to that, John?
All of those things. Yes. Yes. I mean, I think so. The underlying, like what I'm hearing, like, so the keys, like main takeaways. One is, if you have a passion for something that's beyond executive coaching, that's useful. It's not just, I I want to coach people so that I can build my executive coaching practice. People feel that. They feel like you're connecting with them for the sake of the coach to build their practice rather than for the sake of the coach to help give gifts to humanity. So if you think about, okay, so what's the larger thing that you're up? Like, what's the larger that thing that you're up to? I know Raj is up to empowering women in executive positions. So if there is someone in my mind, I meet, an executive who I think, yes, this is someone who I think, could benefit from Raj. That's what you like. That's the degree of clarity you want to have in your network. And so you need to have something larger than just, okay, I'm an executive coach. If you want to successfully market this and then help your network help you, which leads to the second thing, which is it's all about networking. It's all about using whatever context you already have and saying, hey, this is the specialty, this is what I do, this is what I can offer. Like that's the good stuff. Networking is the good stuff. Once you have that, and then it's the pattern I've seen, and it was true for me too, is you start working with one or two executives, usually through a connection. For me, it was the parents of the students I was working with. They were in executive stuff. I was doing Arbinger, Arbinger Institute material. And they said, hey, we're looking at bringing in an Arbinger person. Let's bring you in now and see what happens. And that was the start. And then I also got hired from an agency to do executive coaching. So that's the other way to go too, is sometimes these agencies, like you said, HR, they might have initiatives to look and find executive coaches. So we're having the ICF credentials, really important. But your very first executive coaching client is most likely going to come from a referral. And you treat that referral like the very best you can treat them. Ask them, network. And like you said, just, if you have something especially that you can do that's beyond just building your practice, but a focal point, that makes all the difference.
Yeah. We're on time already.
I know. And I have someone coming at noon Pacific here, help with a couple of these projects. We have new box designs and I don't know, sending books out all these different places has been interesting. But yeah, so there's so many things happening. Any new coach, I would just encourage you, like really, truly, like it comes down to figuring out like the very specific person, there he is, the very specific person who the specialty you work with, so you can make it easy for other people to talk about you. That's the key. And we'll stop there. It's enough.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Ryan. It's so good to see you and welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be back.
Yeah, I know we have lots of other things to connect on too, but everyone watching, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of the larger Coach Training EDU community and really truly being a part of this work to further the field of coaching and empathy and active listening, all these good things. This has been another Q&A session for the Coach and Flourish podcast. We'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye.